What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. So here we are already, December 8th. Wow, already December 8th. And the time is just flying. I mean, here we are. The Nets are 8-10. So let's just dive right in and take a look at this team this past week. I don't know what to make of this team anymore. Every time I think I have them figured out, they do something ridiculous. They started off with a game against the Knicks. Now that game was a very good game for the Nets. They came out aggressive at the beginning of the game. Lopez was dominating at the beginning of the game. Things were looking really well for them. And I believe they had a 15, 16 point lead. And then the Knicks, went on a run, which I knew was going to happen, and they made it very, very, very close down the stretch of the game. But then Joe Johnson, was able to help carry the team down the end, and the Nets came away with the 98-93 victory. That was a great win for the Nets, in my opinion, because they finally had another game in which they played overall well. Other than the run that they did allow the Knicks to get back into the game and make it close at the end, they pretty much outplayed the Knicks in every aspect, and it was really great to see from the Nets being able to do that. The Knicks, they're continuing to struggle. It's rough. It's rough. I've said it several times that I'm not a fan of them trying to run the triangle offense with their players they have, but that's their identity. That's what Phil Jackson wants. That's what Derek Fisher's going to bring, and that's the team's going to have to learn. And if they can't learn, then they're going to have to bring players in because, I saw it especially in that Nets game. The flow of the offense just at times was just not there for the Knicks, and that's the problem. The triangle offense, you need to execute it properly. It is a very efficient offense if done correctly. But if done poorly, it can cause a lot of problems. It can cause a lot of isolation, iso ball, and a lot of inconsistency. And that's the problem with the Knicks. So until they can figure out how to successfully run the triangle, they really are going to struggle. And it's a shame because, I picked the Knicks to be the 7th seed come my preseason predictions. And I really thought the Knicks were going to be a much better team than this. Now, the season's very young still. I also thought the Nets would be a much better team than what they're doing right now. But, the season is young. There's only 18 games in, so the Knicks could turn it around if they could figure some things out, and they could, start figuring out how to do, the triangle and how to execute well offensively. I think they'll be okay. But for now, it was a good win for the Nets, and I was glad the Nets won because they really should have won. They played like the better team, and the Knicks did a good job of coming back into the game to make it close, but the Nets actually executed well down the stretch. So that was a good game for me to watch. And that leads me to maybe the best game the Nets have played all year, and that was against the San Antonio Spurs. I had no expectations of the Nets to actually win this game. I think it went in their favor in the sense that the Nets were home, so they had, the Brooklyn crowd behind them. But they were fantastic, and really, who was fantastic? There was two players who were fantastic. Mirza Teletovic, who started for Kevin Garnett, was incredible. 26 points, 15 rebounds. I love it when Teletovic plays great because he is really an X factor for the Nets. That's one thing I have determined with this Nets team is that they are an X factor team. Teletovic is an X factor. When he plays well, this Nets team plays well. When he plays poorly, the Nets are going to be poor. But more impressively for me, as great as I loved Teletovic's performance, it was Brook Lopez's 15 rebounds that put a giant smile on my face. 15 rebounds! I never would imagine Lopez could even come close to 15 rebounds. He looked good, and I was watching that game. He went up, and he was grabbing rebounds with one hand. He jumped higher than Tim Duncan and overpowered Duncan, frustrated Duncan on the defensive end. Lopez, to me, everyone talked about Teletovic that game, but Brook Lopez was the key to me in that game. He played like a 7-footer. And you know what? He only shot 6 of 15, I think, from the field. But you know what? I don't care. The Nets have plenty of other offensive weapons. You're 7 feet tall. So get rebounds and play defense, and that's what he did. He got 15 rebounds, had 2 blocks, including held Tim Duncan to, I believe, I think it was like 3 of like 12 or something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me. Something like that. Very low percentage. That is what I want from Brook Lopez, and I am so glad he did that. Lopez has done much better the last few games. Other than the Bulls game in which he was completely outplayed, he's played very well, and he's averaged at least 7 rebounds the last 4 games, except for the Bulls game where he got pulled. He only had 3. But that's good. He had 7 in the game against Philly. He had only 2 against the Bulls, but then he had 8 against the Knicks. He had 15 against the Spurs, so he's looking good. So that's what I took away. It's a shame, however, if you heard the latest news, Brook Lopez was just diagnosed with a strained back. So, yeah, lower back strain. So here I am talking about how great Lopez is finally playing, and he is. He's finally playing like his old self, and what happens? He gets hurt. What a surprise. The only good news is it's not his foot. So it's something you can just say, okay, it happened, it's a fluke. He's supposed to miss 4 games. At least 4 games. He's going to be reevaluated next week. He's going to miss the next 4 games. You know, that's a tough blow since he's playing so well, but you know what? It means he's going to come back healthier and he actually can be like he was before the injury, I'm okay. I think the Nets can be not as good, but just as efficient without him. Going into a small lineup, I think they should definitely start Kevin Garnett as the center and start Mirza Teletovic. I think that makes the most sense. I don't think it makes any sense to start Plumlee. I think it should definitely be just start Teletovic in the power forward and slide Garnett to the to the center. I think that would be fine. I think that would work well for the Nets. And I think that they will be fine without Lopez for 4 games and maybe a little bit more. I'm just a little upset because Lopez has finally played better, but that's just the sport. Hopefully he can not have any more injuries. You know, I read that. I'm like, of course, just when the guy's playing better. But whatever. But anyway, that next after the Spurs game was one of the worst games the Nets played in a long time, and that was against the Atlanta Hawks. Now the Hawks have been fantastic of late. I think they've won 6 straight. They're second in the East. But it's just bad. They couldn't do anything. And Teletovic, who had 26 points the game before, had, I think, 2 points the whole game against the Hawks. Darren Williams played well, but not great. Lopez, he struggled mostly. I think he still got 7 rebounds that game as well, but he struggled mostly, and he didn't really play in the fourth quarter down the stretch. But Joe Johnson is weird. He started off the season really, really hot and really played really well. Last few games, he's been very bad. Very bad. And I'm not sure exactly why. The shots that he normally was making, he's not making now. So, I don't know. Maybe it's fatigue. Maybe his age is getting to him. He is 34, I think, or 33. I don't know what exactly it is. But either way, the Nets completely were terrible that game. I was upset because I thought they could beat the Hawks. But when I take a step back and I look at how well the Hawks have been playing of late, it doesn't shock me that they lost, but I'm actually okay because I wanted the Nets to win 2 out of 3 games down the stretch, and they did with their shocking win over the Spurs. So that's the Nets. They're 8-10, and like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm trying to figure out this Nets team, and I think I have an idea of what they're like. They remind me a lot of the team 2 years ago that won 49 games. They primarily consist of Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, and Brook Lopez. When all 3 of those players play well, the Nets have a 95% chance of winning, regardless of who they're playing. The truth is, those 3 guys only really played well against the Knicks the first time, and I think they played well one other game too, in which they did really well. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. I think only 2 times this year in which all 3 of those players played well. When all 3 of them play well, 95% of the time the Nets are going to win. Because when you got Brook Lopez scoring, 20 and 7, and you got Darren Williams scoring 18 and giving 9 assists, and Joe Johnson scoring 22, even more than that. That's what they need to do. it's going to be hard to beat the Nets. It's not impossible, but it's going to be hard to. And that's the way the Nets team was 2 years ago. When those three guys all played well, the Nets won. If two of those three players play well, it's about a 50-50 chance that the Nets will win a game. It depends on the opponent, of course. Both things depend on the opponent, but if it's any team in the league, 50-50 chance that the Nets can win the game if two of those three players, whether it's Johnson, Lopez, Williams, Johnson, you know what I mean? Williams, you know what I mean? If any of those guys play, two of those three guys play well, there's a 50-50 chance they will win. If only one of those guys or no play well, they only have maybe like a 15%, 25% chance of winning at the highest because their team focuses so much around those three players. Now, Mirza Teletovic, like I said, he's the X factor. He is the true X factor. When he plays well, when Teletovic gives you quality minutes and quality points and rebounds, that bumps up the percentage. But he is a very inconsistent player. It's kind of frustrating. We saw it. 26 points against the Spurs, 2 against the Hawks. He is the X factor. He can make up for when one of those three players don't play well. So if Lopez doesn't play well and Teletovic is playing well, he can make up the fact, and that team could probably still have a 95% chance of winning. You know what I mean? He is the guy who can plug into that big three and pick up where if one guy lets off. When all four of them are playing well, like they did in the first time the Nets played the Knicks, I know 100% the first time the Knicks played the Nets, or the Nets played the Knicks, whichever way you want to say it. I said it one way or the other way. Anyway, the hell am I saying? The Nets dominated that game because when all four of those players are playing well, you're not beating the Nets. So it is, he can be plugged in there, but if he doesn't play well, he needs those other three main guys to play well to pick it up. But that's the truth of the Nets. The rest of the bench players, they're just role players. If they can all play well, that's good. But, the strength of this team is those four players. It really is. Garnett helps defensively. Plumlee brings some energy. Jack playing well off the bench. But the truth of the matter is the success of the Nets is dictated from those four players, mainly the big three of Daniel Williams, Joe Johnson, Brook Lopez, and Teletovic as a wild card. Watch the Nets. That's how this team wins. Their 8 wins, they've had production from those guys. Their 10 losses, they didn't get full production from those guys. And that's the key to this team. So really, I think the truth of the matter is the success of the Nets has to be based off their consistency. Can they consistently play the same way every time? Can those four players play the same way every time? So now that Brook Lopez is hurt, Teletovic, I think, will have to pick up. And it's be the same thing. If those three guys, Teletovic, Williams, and Johnson all play well, Nets will have a good chance of winning. Same thing as before. 2 of those guys play well, 50%, and so on and so forth. That's my unofficial mathematical equation of the Brooklyn Nets. Because that's just the way it looks like through these first 18 games. That being said, Lopez out is a blow, but it's not a crucial blow because he's only out for a week at least, maybe a little bit more. Also, I think starting Teletovic can help, fill a void pretty easily, and I like Garnett as the starting center. So we'll see what happens. So let's look at the next few games coming up. We got 4 games, starting with tonight. The Nets play the Cavs at Barclays Center. The Cavaliers have finally started to put it together. They're 11-7. I think they've won 5 straight or something like that. I think this is going to be a loss. I really do. Everything's kind of clicking for the Cavs. Without Lopez, then his offensive rebounding ability is going to really beat up the Nets, I think. With is Varejao still hurt? But either way, with Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson and LeBron, the Cavs are going to win that game. Could the Nets upset? Listen, I thought the Spurs were going to beat the Nets, and the Nets won. So anything can happen. Obviously, that's why you play the game. But I think that's going to be a loss for the Nets. Then comes the Bulls on Wednesday at Chicago. That's going to be a loss again, though that also could be a shocking win. I think the truth is the biggest thing I've seen with the Nets team is they can beat anybody, but they can also lose to anybody, depending on the equation, like I mentioned before. But I think, the Bulls game is going to be a loss. I just think they will lose just like they lost to them last time. Then they play the 76ers. You got to win that game. I am very upset as a Nets fan, the 76ers did not tie the Nets' worst start in franchise history. 1 game short. They went 0-17 before winning a game. And, of course, the Nets, we know, they went 0-18 and back in 2000 and 9, 10. I don't remember exactly what year it was. I was in college, but anyway, aside the point. I'm trying to remember back when they went 0-18, but I was upset. I wanted another team to be worse than that team, but maybe they won't have as many wins. Nets won 12 games that year. I'm hoping the 76ers don't win 12 games. Anyway, that's going to be a win. If that's not a win, same thing as I said last time. If the Nets ever lose to the 76ers this year, I'm going to have the next NetsBoy episode not in my NetsBoy gear. I'm just going to be my regular self because that's just, I would need time to have the attire off me because I would feel disgusting wearing it. So that's got to be a win. And then they play the Hornets on Saturday, back-to-back. Hornets have struggled immensely this year. That's going to be a scary game, though, because the Hornets were a playoff team last year, and theoretically they just should be better. That could be a scary game. I think the Nets should win, but that's a trap game. The Nets could blow that, and I would be pretty mad if that's the case. But I think overall the Nets should win that game. So the next 4 games, I think the Nets will go 2-2. That puts them at 10-12. Doesn't put them back over the 500 mark or anything. But you know what? I'm not too concerned. Their schedule will eventually get easier as time goes on. I think this Nets team will start clicking, and I think they'll go on a run like they've done the last 2 seasons. I still believe they're capable of, maybe not the 3 seed anymore, but I definitely think they're capable of a top seed, a 4 seed. They're not going to pass the Raptors. I think the Raptors are too legit, and I think the Raptors are going to win the Atlantic Division. But I think the Nets can definitely be a top 4. But like I said, there'll be more to tell. We'll see what happens. Plenty of time left in the season. So until then, keep your eyes open for the next NetsBoy, and keep your fingers crossed for Brook Lopez. Hopefully, the guy can finally stay healthy and come back and be good. Play the way he's been playing of late. So anyway, until then, this is NetsBoy signing off.